everybody, welcome back. Today I have one of the most amazing witches ever here on the channel to chat about...
I don't know about that.
I do. I'll say it's my channel, so I won. And we're going to talk today about goddess knows what, Morrigan, very likely, and the energies around and the lessons that we've been relearning and how we're coping in current times with Morrigan at the reins of that, maybe.
Woo, yes. I'm like, look, you didn't have to go do all this if you wanted us to slow down. I mean, we're good. You didn't have to shut the world down, Mama. My gosh.
I'm like, are we having an overhaul of sovereignty right now? Is that what's happening?
Right? I'm like, I know it's not all about us, but I'm like, okay, really? You didn't have to go this far, you know? I do feel like, you know, I've read a lot of sociologists kind of writing about what happened during, you know, the 1800s and even further back, 1600s, you know, Middle Ages, and talking about, you know, when the Renaissance happened. And, you know, we've experienced this before. And when it was finally kind of running itself out, you know, we had the Renaissance, and it was one of the greatest times of the human race. And I'm trying to keep that as like my little hopeful spot for all of this, and hoping that when this does wind down, that we will be in another Renaissance and we will all be blooming like magical orchids, and there won't be any more of whatever this is.
This mess.
Right.
That's
right?
a really nice thought. Can we have a second Renaissance, please, universe, when this is all done? That would be
yeah. And, you know, I'm kind of trying to treat this time, you know, Joey, it's weird because I know a lot of people that work from home or at least telecommute constantly. And, you know, for some of them, like, not a lot has changed because, you know, I telecommute a lot too, and I don't tend to leave my house when I'm in those 2 and 3 week times. But it is very different even going out to the market to try to find food, and there are empty shelves, and it's very odd when there's no traffic on the road. So it really does kind of put you in a very different headspace, you know, mentally and spiritually.
Yeah. Well, I've been drawing on my Chaos Virgo, and I've actually been teaching people the Chaos Virgo method of coping in situations like this, because I work from home. But if I follow a very particular routine, then I get very, very bored and I get rebelling against it. So I've been sort of trying to teach people the ideas behind how I work to try and help people cope with this really bizarre situation. And with the center of that being like self-care, soul care. If it's making you really feel negative and, you know, it's really making you feel ill or whatever, then just switch and do something else. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. But I have to say that going to the shops is now the weirdest experience ever, because we have like, you have to maintain distance from people, so it's like orderly queues with which is very English anyway, so that's not really a change, but you have to be this far away from people, and then you can move forward to this line and then move forward to this line, and it's like something out of a sci-fi movie. It's really bizarre, really weird.
It is. And you know, it's weird because I don't anymore. I used to love to read dystopian fiction. Anything about, you know, the end of the world and surviving. Like one of my favorites is Oryx and Crake, Margaret Atwood. I've read, you know, The Stand. I've read like tons of books about, okay, something has happened and the world is no longer functional and there's not a lot of people left. And I love reading those stories. And the reason they always appealed to me is because I think at heart, I'm a little bit of an introvert, believe it or not. And I think the older I get, I know, like, there's people in the ether screaming right now. I'm not a fucking introvert. Yes, I am. But also, I'm a little bit misanthropic sometimes. I like to be left alone and by myself. So I think I always kind of fetishize the idea of the world not having as many people in it. And, you know, this whole stuff that we have happening is a little different than anything I've ever read. But it also is kind of making me realize that, you know, I never fetishized like the survival aspect. I'm not really interested in cooking my own food or hunting a deer down. I don't want to do that. But I realize there are a large section of people, especially here in America, and especially in certain, I've got to be careful, certain aspects of American culture. There are people that really fetishize picking up a gun and going out and pillaging towns and taking food, and it's like a fetish to them. And it's been very strange to see that we are literally only 3 weeks into a shutdown, and these very same people cannot sit still because Fuddruckers isn't open. They're like literally protesting on the Capitol steps. So that the sociology of all this has been really interesting, but also unnerving.
Yeah, I've been talking to
so I've been doing a little spell work around self-care myself, because going out is like I have to come home and completely decompress from all that.
I think it's really important to have a good measure of protection as well when you're going out into that sort of energy too. Whether or not you feel at risk even in your own environment. Although I will say, I live in a fairly quiet town, you could maybe call it, right? And it's not very big by English standards. And the crime rate has apparently doubled here in this sleepy little place, and to the point where we had like, I feel like an old person now, but we had youths hanging around people's gardens last night trying to steal garden furniture and things out of people's gardens. And so normally we don't have all the things locked, and now we've got everything locked down. And that's a really weird feeling of that element of people's mindset starting to like turn, and it's almost like predatory in a way, like what can I take, what can I and actually maybe that started with the hoarding, because that was that first sign of that kind of behavior, of that this is mine, and as long as me and mine are okay, then it doesn't matter that half the people don't have toilet paper.
I use the word feral with my wife. It is really unnerving to see how feral people become when they are in fear. And I get the fear that there may not be enough food or toilet paper or whatever, but I don't know, and I'm not naive about the world. I've been around a lot of people who have very base emotions and a lack of control and all that, but it's a very unsafe feeling to be in this for whatever short of time we've been in it, because it's a short time relatively. It feels like forever, but it's unnerving to see how short this has been happening for America. It's only been 3 or 4 weeks. And yes, we had foresight based on what else was happening in the world, but it didn't take long for people's really depraved and craven behavior to start showing up. So it's I don't know. I really just hope that something shifts. I hope that something shifts for people, that they kind of start understanding that, acting with love and care for your fellow neighbor is much easier than acting like, I don't know what. I'm trying to be careful here because I have huge feelings about this.
Well, that's really the only way we'll get through it anyway. We need the community. We need looking after one another, because the attitude of self-service rather than, you have to protect yourself. You have to take care of the people you love. But at the same time, it almost becomes hostile in a way. If you become hostile in that space, then you're isolated. And people are dying because people are like, I don't care, I don't have symptoms, I'm going to go out on the beaches, blah, blah. And it's driving me crazy here. I know it's happening in America too from the news stories. But like people outside just hanging around with all their kids out and having people over, and you're like, no. You could kill people. Like, just because you're fine doesn't mean that everybody is going to be. And I live with an essential worker, so she's putting her health on the line every time she goes to work, and she's not in the direct line of fire, but even so. And then there are people like hanging around outside just chatting to their friends on the doorstep with all the kids rolling around, and you're like,
Yeah, it's been interesting because, you know, when this first started over here, you know, there were a lot of folks in the government that were saying, oh, this is a hoax. You know, the whole thing is not real. It's other countries trying to control us. And there were it was a lot of insanity being spoken. And, you know, then people started getting sick and, you know, numbers started happening and things were really just piling up. And, you know, then it was like, okay, well, it's no longer a hoax, but the way we're going to handle this is just not even at all in line with medical data, with scientific data. And I think that's been really frustrating because, you know, my perception at first was that other parts of the world, I know Japan has done an amazing job with it. You know, there's been other countries in the world that have done a much better job maintaining and controlling what has happened and the information associated with it. So I don't know, like some days I have to turn away from the news and just be like, okay, today, my part of my self-care today is I'm not looking at Facebook or the television at all today.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
that's 100%. Yeah. There are days where I'm like, okay, we're going to post the things that I think are going to help people on social media. And that's it. That's what we're doing on social media today.
Yeah. I've been trying to go on Instagram every day or every other day and just post a few minutes of gratitude every day. It helps keep me grounded. And, you know, I've been getting a lot of feedback from people on my feed there that are like, I look forward to these every morning. I look forward to whatever funny tidbit you're going to say or whatever piece of gratitude. And, you know, because some days my gratitude is very simple. I'm glad that the sun is out today. I'm glad that I have, you know, I'm glad that my peas are growing in my garden. Some days it's very simple. You know, I had one today where I'm working at home and I was just very grateful that I have a comfortable setup in the house, that I'm able to maintain my job at home in relative comfort, and I get to be with my dogs all day. You know, because there are a lot of people, I know a lot of people that really, they can't do their job from home. So they're kind of sitting, and some of them are worried about how they're going to pay their rent. So, you know, it's very sobering. And, you know, Joey, I don't know if you've experienced this, but the other weird thing that's happened is, you know, so we're Virgos and we do love us a list and a schedule.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would be surprised by that. But I found myself when this first started going, okay, I'm going to be at home for the next 2 or 3 months and I'm going to do this, this, and this. And I made this huge list of things. And I had a list for like all the witchy things that I wanted to accomplish, all the things in my house I wanted to accomplish, because, you know, we're still kind of waiting to put our house up for sale. So there's lots of little projects. And I made these huge lists. And then I sat there and stared at them for a solid week and did nothing on any of the lists. Because I did not expect the wave of just WTF to kind of wash over. You know, did you have like that moment where you're like, I don't know what to do about any of this and I'm just not going to do anything? Or have you kind of maintained your steady every foot forward?
I definitely had a big fear moment in the beginning, because I had this big moment of, I'm self-employed, and at the time the government wasn't offering anything for the self-employed. They've changed that since. But, you know, that still won't come into effect until the earliest June for the self-employed. So I had a big moment of terror around, well, finances and rent and keeping me and Daisy safe, you know, because I was like, I can't fathom what's going to happen. Am I going to lose everything? And like, and I had that great big fear download moment. And then I started going through everything, and because of the people that I live with, they were like, if you need to pay half rent or if you need to not pay rent, then we'll all make it through together. So don't worry about it. And we have a more of a family setup kind of thing, really, than, you know, lodger and people that you lodge with.
Okay, so we're going to add them to our gratitude list.
Yeah. And so once that major fear element was off, so it's like no matter what happens, Daisy and I are not going to be on the street kind of thing. So once that was off the table, then I felt more called by the Morrigan, and I felt this like surge of energy thing that happened, and it was like protect the tribe is what she said to me. nothing else. And since then, I've been in that mode, that like warrior mode, that like shield wall, protect the tribe, help the tribe. I set up a Discord through my Patreon for people so they can talk about whatever they want to talk about as long as they're respectful. So anything that's troubling the people on there, you know, from the $1 tier to the whatever, everybody can go on there and it's safe, and I keep an eye on it, and it's just a safe space. And we've been doing a lot of spell work, a lot of ritual work, a lot of like sharing of things, just to really get that protection element through for people, to the point where I was like, right, in the Virgo way that we do, I was like, right,
raising that vibration. We're
going to do a protection spell. We're going to have everybody's name who wants to be in it. And I'm going to show you elements of how I've done it. So if you want to do it too, or do something different, you can. And we can all like basically just call it shield walling. So, you know, arms and arms and arms and arms of people just trying to help people, just trying to keep people feeling that they're not alone and keep people feeling protected in that safe space, which belongs to me, because I could and I have done things publicly, but the sort of Patreon is kind of my space, like that belongs to me in a way. So it feels more not confined in a bad way, but I know where I can put the picket fences, right, and the border walls and things like that. So that's the kind of energy I've been in. But I've also been making sure that I honor the minute I feel my body starts to go, or at the minute I start to feel mentally pushed, I'm like, right, we're resting now. Because Virgos have this really bad thing where they don't rest. They're like, we can keep going, we can keep going, we can keep going, fall over on the floor. And so especially now, I've been like, no, if I need to stop, then it doesn't matter. If I need to stop, then we need to stop. So
we are the Energizer bunnies of the entire zodiac. And, you know, it's funny because a lot of people will kind of be like, oh, that's the, you know, the Taurus because they're so steadfast, or that's the Pisces because they're up in the air and they, you know, kind of float from thing to thing, or, oh, that's the Leo because they roar forward. And I'm like, no, when you think of like the battery that never gives out, it's the Virgo. We're the most tenacious in a lot of ways, you know? Okay, hold on. My partner's home. Let me shut my door real quick. Hang on. Oh my gosh. Because otherwise all the dogs will be in here wanting to love on us. So how has your creativity been during this time?
Oh, off the chart. And I didn't expect it. And really, I guess it makes sense when you really sit and think about it. I mean, my creativity tends to be like, you know, Energizer Bunny anyway. And creativity is my happy space though. So I feel like creativity is where I go to improve my mood, to download the spiritual information, to create, because sometimes the world outside is ugly. So let's go inside and create something beautiful. That's kind of how I feel about my creativity, and I love it. But I have been channeling messages and energies for creating things very strongly.
How's that coming to you? Is it dreams? Is it just like the mind burst? Are you just feeling it? How's it coming to you?
It's not dreams, because the dreams are weird. The dreams are weird and unsettling. I keep having the strangest dream, like dying dreams and thinking I'm dead dreams, and dreams which is like that. I had this dream the other night where it was as if you had spliced together 10 movies and you were going through each one and you couldn't stop moving forward. And I was like, what is happening? So it's definitely not dreams. So when I sort of, it's kind of difficult to fully explain, but we'll have a go. So when I'm physically creating something, like I created this smudge today, and it's for the blood mothers, so the connection to the matriarchal lines and the ancestors. And when I was creating that, I just felt like I was just downloading from the spiritual ecosystem the entire time. And it was like almost being in a meditative trance in a way, because I was feeling what they were feeling, hearing what they were telling me. I could see people around me, and it's almost like the best way I can describe it for me is it's like when you see a memory, which is not a memory, because you can recall a memory and it's very real to you, and you're seeing it as if it's passing in front of your eyes, but it's not. So, and that you see it through your own lens as well, of course. And you remember details and how things looked and how things smelt, and you get a very visceral reaction to it, but you're not seeing it out here, you're seeing it in here. So that's kind of how I download the spiritual information, unless it's my mama and she'll just pop into the head and be like, this please.
Yeah.
How's your creativity been?
It's interesting. Well, it's interesting that you use the word download, because that is absolutely what has been happening with me. The first week that this was on, nothing was happening. I think I was in such a swirl with trying to figure out how to do my day job and, manage the household and just kind of, do the things every day that need to be done. And kind of worrying about, what was going to happen with my family. And, my brother's in the military and he's medical, so I didn't really know what was happening. So the first week that this was on, and I made all my lists and then did none of the things on that list, I was like, oh, wow, I'm probably just going to have to sit here and be depressed the entire time this is going. And, of course, the Virgo brain was like, no, you cannot waste this time. This is good time. But after about a week, after I kind of let it sink in that, no, this is what we're doing. This is going to be what's happening for a while. This is the routine that we're now acclimating to. Once I got over that hump, it was interesting. I started playing the radio all day while I was working, and I would hear a song. And then the next thing you know, I had my book in my hand and was writing like furiously, like, oh my gosh, here's the spell that I need to do, or oh, here's a video for an idea for a video that I need to do, or oh, here's a subject that I need to study on, or hey, here's another angle that I haven't thought about. And it was weird because it was mostly while I was in motion doing things around my house, but it was almost like I would be doing a thing and then I would go, and it was like I was receiving, and it was like, oh my God, I got to get somewhere and write this down, because my short-term memory sucks. So if I don't write things down, they're gone forever. But yeah, it was almost like, hey, the phone is ringing, Mama's on the other end, and if you don't pick it up, whatever that message was may not be there the next time she calls. So, there was an urgency about it too. But it has been very, I think creatively, this has been one of the most fertile times I've had in a long time. And that's saying a lot. I feel wide open in a lot of ways that I don't generally. And I think being at home is a little bit of a safety net for that. So maybe I'm just, safe at home and not affected by so much of the world outside. But whatever it is, I'm loving it. I've been working on my book again and, making more videos for Patreon and, just kind of feeling the groove again, which I missed,
Yeah, absolutely. I've been like that too. Like the urge to create is both more present, but it's coming more easily as well, to the point where I did a Morrigan video, and I had gotten to the point where I wasn't doing many Morrigan videos for a number of reasons. One, I wasn't in the place that I wanted to share and talk about things. There was some negativity around it, and I got to the point where I wasn't wanting to make it. And there was one I've made recently for Patreon, and another one that I've got to do, to the point where I have pages and pages and pages and pages of notes and things I want to touch on. And I haven't felt like that about the Morrigan videos for years.
Right.
And it was so in depth and so important, and it has that kind of, this is important now. It's not that it wasn't important before, but it's important now. It needs to be said now. It needs to be heard now. And what the far-reaching consequences or implications of that are, I'm not sure yet. But it feels very present. Like the Morrigan is very present, and it's almost like crow on your shoulder. Like, this is important. Do this.
Yeah, and there's a feeling of strength associated with that, because I really get what you're saying. Doing videos on the Morrigan, and putting them especially out on, I call it big YouTube, it's whatever's not Patreon. Putting it out on YouTube where there will be thousands of people looking at it. I have encountered in the past too, talking about the Morrigan, there are some people who do not agree or appreciate with the way that I ingest certain concepts, and they will freely let you know. And that in and of itself doesn't bother me. I am sometimes caught off guard by anyone who claims to be a child of the Morrigan, who comes at you with such, it's like, ooh, I don't know where that's coming from, but we don't want any of that here. So yeah, I've caught myself kind of just being like, I don't know if like what I need to say actually needs to be out there if it's going to be counterbalanced with negativity. But I actually have gotten to the point in the last few weeks that I'm like, I don't really care, because I've been real happy to delete ugly comments over the last couple of years. I used to leave comments on my videos, and I would just let whatever anybody said, I would just let it stand, because, I was all about like, well, everybody deserves a voice. Everybody deserves to have their opinion and their say. And I'm not that girl anymore, Joey.
YouTube has changed you.
Yes, because you know what? I'll tell you, this is one of the lessons. And you guys, for people watching, Joey, we know you're here, but we don't get to catch up like this often. But one of the things we were talking about before we got on is, the Morrigan is really, at least for us, we are kind of having to relearn some things. There are some lessons that we're learning over and over, or learning in different ways, or sometimes there are addendums to those lessons. And
that feels right.
Yes. She does that and another thing.
Yeah. To add to this lesson. Yeah.
because I don't feel you heard me all the way the first time. Let's do that again with this. One of the things that I learned is, no, I don't actually need to make space on my YouTube channel, on my Facebook, in my life. I don't need to make space for anything that does not bring me joy. That does not mean that I'm not open to criticism. We're 100% open to criticism. But, I kind of was just like, no, if people don't have the common courtesy to leave their criticism and be quasi-respectful without name-calling, without doing things that are just trash behavior, I'm like, no, honey, you don't get a seat at my table. No. And I don't apologize for that. Not sorry. It's not, I don't go around just deleting people that disagree, but if anybody comes in and they're name-calling, or they're just being hateful, or just they're not adding anything, I'm just like, no, that's not going to go here.
I've had that energy,
and it's made for a better experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gotten to the point where I was like, I am putting all this energy into like trying to almost explain myself to people who are coming at me in a really negative way, and these people mean nothing in the grand scheme of things, not even to me in a week, never mind like in the real grand scheme of things. And I've gotten to the point now, and it's really interesting. I've gone from being like, no, that's not what I said, or no, that's not what I was implying, or to just whatever. No, like it's a very strong like, no, I'm just done. No. And
my filter is a lot better with that too.
Yeah.